Hey everybody, it's Jason Mefford. Got a question on the CIA exam about IT general controls and application controls. So doing this quick video to just kind of explain that because this kind of brings up the concept of levels of controls within the organization. So first off, before I get into answering the question, I just want to kind of explain about internal controls and the levels that you would normally be thinking about when you're talking about controls in general, internal controls in general, and then how that actually relates back to IT controls. So, internal controls are really actions that are taken by management, and they're usually done either to kind of make sure that the process that you're working on actually works, and they also manage risk inherent in those processes to be able to help you in achieving your objectives. So that's one of the ways that organizations will manage their risk is by treating it or putting internal controls in place. So, if you're familiar with COSO internal controls and kind of the whole general concept around internal controls, one of the things that they actually talk about are levels of controls. So these are levels within the organization. So just for general internal controls, you can think about entity-wide controls. Those are controls that relate to the whole organization. So you can think about some things like the values, the code of conduct, certain policies that relate to the whole organization. Okay, those are entity level controls. Then the next level down is what are usually referred to as process level controls. Those are controls that relate to a particular process or transaction stream. So those could be, for example, controls in the accounts payable function or in the what they call procure to pay, which accounts payable actually would fall into that. So those would be controls that kind of relate to that whole process. So an example of that could be something like your new vendor setup controls, to make sure that you're only bringing in vendors that are actually legitimate vendors into your data. Okay, so that would be kind of a process level. Down below that are actually transaction level controls. So those are things that relate just to the particular transaction that you're doing. So those could be lots of different things depending on the type of transaction that you're looking at. So now let's relate that to IT controls. And in IT controls, they usually refer to three different levels as well, only they use a slightly different term. So the first one is IT general controls, then there's application level controls, and then there are technical controls. And so let me just explain that, and you can analogize that to what you already know about internal controls. So IT general controls are controls that relate to the general IT environment and are very similar to entity level controls. So an example of the IT general controls could be things around the data center, because the data center actually is across the whole IT environment. So within your data center, there's going to be different applications and other things like that. But the controls at that level, like I said, for the IT general controls, are very similar to entity-wide controls. Now, next you move into application controls. Those are controls that are specific to a particular application. And so think of it like as a particular kind of software. It could be your ERP system, it could be email, it could be whatever else you might happen to use in your organization. So those are controls that are specific to that particular application. And then when you get down to the technical level, those are actually technical IT controls that usually relate to things within the application. So it could be things like encryption and other stuff like that, they're actually technical level controls because it relates to some technical configuration within the IT environment. So again, IT general controls are like entity-wide controls. And so an example of that, again, could be your data center. Within the application controls are similar to process level controls. So an example of that could be like your sign-on or identity access management for a particular application. And then technical controls are very similar to the transaction level controls. They could be something like encryption, hash coding, kind of the way that you're doing some of the different technical hardware or software things within your organization, but they are technical in nature and usually just relate to kind of a particular application or hardware type of thing. So I hope that answers the question. If you got more questions, keep them coming. And I'll try to take some time out each week to answer some of the questions. We'll see you later.